3 years deep as a clack connoisseur, a devotee to the Thok Legion, purveyor of Gateron inks for all, committed unicorn aficionado, only to end up with a 65% keyboard using MX blacks on aluminum? Who am I now? Today we're looking at the SingaKBD Kohaku, and it's been a freaking ride to get to this point. Let's get into it. You know, I originally didn't even want this keyboard. It was like when you were young, you didn't want to be too excited about your new crush on a girl and you try to play it cool, only to regret it all later on. The Kohaku is Singa's 65% keyboard. This is not a 65% version of the Korn. You may think so, but it's a completely different mounting style, completely different aesthetic, different weight, style, and a different sound. It has a two-piece aluminum case with a copper weight with a cutout to show the design of a koi fish. It's honestly stellar, but when it was released, I was like, dude, I already have a Korn. Why do I need a Kohaku? I was wrong. You see, endgame, it's not a physical entity of this realm. No one object can be endgame. It is within yourself, deep within the depths of desire, beyond your conscious, only to be unearthed when your FOMO ass tries to enter a raffle for extras and takes the damn L. To Woolback. I definitely did not want the Kohaku. I didn't even listen to the sound test because I was so focused on 60s. I was basically burned after the Keycode 165 because although I thought that keyboard had top tier sound, I only owned the aluminum accent one, didn't have the brass one. It didn't feel hefty enough to feel quality. We also have to talk about the fact that it looked like a freaking KBD 67 Mark II from the top. And teal aluminum was just very hard to match, so it always felt like a partial step toward my last keyboard. You gotta get brass for your endgame, you know? I honestly do prefer having arrow keys and dedicated navigation to the right, but I gave in to the peer pressure, man. Everyone wanted the 160 and the 165 was I played out. If everyone else is getting rid of it, I don't want to be the one holding on to the 165 and calling it endgame. They would all say 6% are more symmetrical. They said 65% are for normies, 6% and take all the most goated layouts. So that was the first time I gave into peer pressure. You'll find that to be a pattern soon enough. So I kind of just jokingly, if I win, I win, entered the raffle for the first extras for this keyboard. And then I watched a few sound tests in that period where you enter and you're waiting for the results. And I didn't hate the Kohaku. I just didn't like the fact that it was a group buy. And if you're a regular and OG viewer, it's a recurring theme. I don't like group buys. So when the group buy finished and the units got into people's hands, people loved the keyboard and the FOMO came. If you don't know what FOMO is, it's fear of missing out. And it's a stupid thing that us feeble humans are susceptible to. And it's kind of like a cornerstone of the keyboard hobby. If there were no FOMO, if there were no hype, then there'd be no hobby. If anyone can get a keyboard that they want at any time, where's the desire? Where's the rarity? Where's the showing off? Where's the flexing? Where's the clout? And after seeing all those sound tests, seeing people happy and excited about their keyboards, realized I'm not immune to FOMO. My Korn didn't look worse by any means, but I simply wanted more. So I asked Elaine for a favor. Hey, Elaine, could I get a base stock Kohaku extra, please? And Elaine is actually a really nice person, and she was really grateful for the original video blowing up of the pea yellow tofu, getting a lot of people to join her Discord and getting a lot more people excited about the unicorn. And I was happy to do that. Like, she didn't compensate me for anything. She hooked it up with the coating, getting that E yellow, which made it a legend. And of course she responded, sure, you're gonna make a video on it, right? Yes. If that's what it takes. It was an offer I could not refuse. So this unit here is a little different. As you can tell, that is patinaed. There were a few B-stock weights that had some issues, and she let me buy one of them. Elaine's level of QC is actually so high that you'd think she's the second coming of Keycaps. I didn't mind the weight at all. I just wanted a Kohaku. But she said, hey, I can patina these if you want to just pay for it. I'm like, you know what? We had a special Korn, so let's make the Kohaku a little special as well. It was gonna take a few more weeks, and this is not a one of one by any means. She had like a batch of kind of messed up weight ones that she ended up patinaing. I paid for everything and she sent it to me. Getting it in hand, man, I freaking immediately wanted to build it, and I did. But this is where the other problem came in. It was actually really hard to pick the parts for it. When I want to figure out what it builds, I look at reviews, and I look at sound tests, and I listen with headphones. I kind of average them out and see what configurations sound good and what configurations sound bad. When a board sounds hollow, it might benefit more from a long pulse switch. If a board is kind of clackier, you can either lean into the clack and use a loud switch like an MX Black or a Cream, or even a little bit less loud, a J2AK. If it's a deep sounding board, you can kind of make it a quiet build, kind of like a sleeper work build, or you can kind of balance it out with a louder switch. Gasket mount boards are typically deeper sounding, but some switches in some boards end up sounding a little bit thin, or they sound too muted. These are all decisions you should make when you listen to sound tests. And you also have to keep in mind, if you listen to a sound test, be aware of background noise. Not that you don't want background noise, but if the video has absolutely zero background noise, there's no room tone, fans in the back, like a little bit of buzzing, the video may be edited, and that's not good. For an accurate sound test, they should only increase the gain or lower the gain depending on how loud it is. If they start messing with the equalizer or doing noise reduction, this sound test is absolutely worthless. Sure, it can be ASMR for someone, but it's worthless for someone who's trying to figure out how to build their keyboard. Aside from that, I was looking at Kohaku builds, and every single sound test had MX Blacks on aluminum. That is the tried and true boomer combination. So I wanted to be spicy. I wanted to do something different. Elaine also had a prototype carbon fiber leaf spring plate made for the board, and she threw one in the package. It yielded a unique sound and feel, so I was like, let's use that. Okay, everyone already has the aluminum. I got this board and I want to do something different. Actually had an issue with my recollection here. My first build was actually what you see on the screen, Oil Kings on carbon fiber. I actually had to rebuild it because TX Stabs Rev 3 screwed me and they were ticking and rattling. And unfortunately, this is the only sound test I have of them. After the Oil Kings on CF wasn't up to par, it wasn't the magical Kohaku sound, we wanted to try something different. So we tried to use Gateron Pinks. What is special about these random pink switches, you may ask? Gateron Pinks were a remake of the original orange stem, milky top, black bottom Gaterons, the tangerines, the R1 tangerines. So as I try to run away from one OG trend, I move right into another one. So I was like, okay, if a lot of people are hype about these original tangerines and these Gateron Pinks, let's build with these. I didn't even listen to a sound test of them. Honestly, I was just like, you know what, it's different. I already paid someone to lube them. Let's use them. We knew Gateron Pinks would be a little bit quieter because of the milky top, so we used the aluminum plate to really give it some pop. So once I cracked open the Kohaku and built with these switches, I immediately felt regret. It was quiet. So quiet. I was so used to my loud and poppy unicorns, so this was kind of disappointing. And I was coping on stream. I was like, it's just a work board. It's perfect. That's exactly what I planned. I made a choice against using MX Black on aluminum, and it sounded way worse than those sound tests I saw on YouTube. In defeat, I ended up letting this thing sit on the shelf. And one day, looking at the beautiful koi fish on my shelf on a keyboard that I was rarely using, I wanted to make a change. And I gave in. At the end of it all, I decided we're going to use MX Blacks on aluminum, but we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to use, listen to me now, West German vintage MX Black from Germany. West Germany was in fact in Germany. Made in 1992, I think, perhaps. Who the hell knows? Actually, this all can be make-believe. So how did I get these switches? Well, in 2020, I used to have friends. He knew a guy that could source MX Blacks from old keyboards like Atari keyboards. I was skeptical then, as I am now, so I let my friend buy first to test. So he actually shipped whole PCBs from Germany over to the United States. My friend desoldered them and then cleaned them and then tested a batch. It was honestly the smoothest damn thing I've ever heard. I actually used those switches in the UTD 360C video that people love so much. So this guy and his product was legitimate. I bought from him again in late 2020, but it ended up getting lost for about 3 or 4 months. I almost called it a complete loss. They showed up 4 months later. I promptly left them in a bag for a year. You see, vintage MX Blacks are very particular. You have to clean them, but keep the parts together. And you have to take the diodes out. It has to be done per switch, and it's just a mess. And once all said and done, when you lube it, you have to keep the parts together. Vintage MX Blacks are just cherry MX Blacks that are just old, that have been used a lot, so the friction wore down the material. So if you separate the top and bottom, you're losing some of the smoothness because those grooves that are created for that switch may not line up with the other switch. Wait a second, Andy. We have break-in machines now. Why are vintage MX Blacks special? Well, Cherry changed their molds a lot. Prior to 1994 or so, they used a different mold than the modern ones used today. The molds were smoother in general and yielded a slightly different sound. So yeah, all that work and my lazy ass and the fact that I don't even like MX Blacks, so I just kept them in a bag just to show off during streams. But today, we're gonna endgame the fuck out of this keyboard. Putting in switches, I paid $1.17 per. Yeah, $117. From Germany, not lubed. I'm that idiot. The man I trusted to do the job was Cab. We used my favorite springs, Sprit 63.5 grams slow curve 2. I know there's history with Sprit being a general piece of and not shipping his parts and scamming people, but damn, his springs have an extra bit of flavor. Dusky films were used because cherry switch are actually what films were designed for. And then came the build. The entire time, I felt like an imposter. I fought MX Blacks for so long, and here I am putting it into a keyboard. I've done hybrid glides into the corn, but I ended up taking them out. It was too easy to just use MX Blacks on aluminum in the corn, let alone it was just loud as hell. But everyone already does it, so I try to go against the grain. But for this Kohaku, it just wants the blacks. So then came the sound test. First time ever for me and my audience, I died and went to heaven. This was it. Oh, fuck, this sounds good. No. I hate all of this. The Vince somehow had deepness to them that I didn't really get out of the lightly lubed broken in Hyperglide MX Blacks from Elixir. The Kohaku has a clackiness to the gasket that I don't get out of most gasket keyboards. I had that loudness. Feel the springs felt amazing. It was like the Kohaku was made for Hyperglide MX Blacks. And that's honestly probably why every sound test on YouTube has the Kohaku with MX Blacks on aluminum. I'm coping a lot and I'm justifying a lot, but I do think the vintage MX Blacks are a little bit deeper, which made it sound much more to my preference rather than that sharp clack of lightly looped Hyperglides. This keyboard right here is what Drews are made of. Being that this is a modern keyboard and designed properly, this does not have hollowness. Other high-end 65s like the Plume did. Force Break as a mod exists today and it's an easy, painless, and removable mod, but it hurts me a little when I have to use that on a more expensive keyboard. Honestly, I did have to do it for the TGR 910 VKC as well as the TGR 910 ME. Those boards just honestly don't sound very good, but they look really cool. Other modern 65s like the House and the Marisi Sessi, I don't know how to say the whole name, they didn't need the mod either. They were full in their own right. It is something to keep in mind if a board needs it. You like the aesthetic, like the TGR VKC here? Then just deal with it, okay? It's your keyboard, who cares if someone judges you? They're not the one using it at the end of the day. The Kohaku overall has a clean aesthetic, and the unique weight, just stellar. It's just stellar. I do not love rectangular brass weights. I don't love Toblerones, but when it's a cutout weight, it's just a marvel of manufacturing for me. The feel of the leaf spring gasket with the aluminum plate was definitely cushy and comfy and can be used as a daily driver with no desire to feel any other gasket mount. Elaine really focused on this when she was talking about the keyboard. It's really cool to talk to designers when they're so proud of the thing that they made. She really has a passion for keyboards. Elaine definitely nailed the feel department on this board and honestly the sound department as well. Full sound, a more clacky gasket mount. There's not much more that I could ask for. Y'all remember when I tried the PC Yeti and the gasket mount was clacky and poppy? I was like, this is the best thing I've ever felt and heard. There isn't much to complain about this damn thing. It's worth the hype. Well, there's one thing. With high-end keyboards, right? You have high profile, which means the case kind of comes up higher and it meets the bottom of the keycap. It hides the switch from being visible. And you can tell with gamer keyboards, you can see the switch between the keycap and the case. For some reason, this is one of my only keyboards where I can see the gap between the bottom row and the case. Well, it's not the only keyboard. And here from the side, you can see that there's no gap on the right side, but looking from the bottom, you do see a gap. And you can actually see the PCB from where you're sitting while using it. Now you may think, oh, Andy, you're probably using a long pole switch. I'm not, I'm just using MX Blacks. Andy, maybe it's just the stab. Also look at the rest of the keycaps at the bottom row. It's there. It's just there, okay? It doesn't affect the sound or feel at all. It's a purely aesthetic thing, but it's there. And I can see right now on the table, and I just try not to look at it. But that's my only complaint, honestly. I know I'm a big Singa shill. Yeah, you probably shouldn't trust me. I'm just kidding. The board is great overall. You may ask though, should you buy this in the aftermarket? F to the no. Elaine is doing a big group buy in early 2023, so simply wait for that. So that just means that my Kohaku here is gonna be devalued. There's gonna be more units on the market in 2023, and I just can't flip it for as much. Damn. Same thing with my Unicorn. She has done one R2.2 run, and she's gonna do another R2.2 run. My corner from R2.1, and you know, maybe keyboards aren't as much of an investment as I thought they were. They were never a freaking investment. And the resale value of the Unicorn and the Kohaku don't matter to me. I'm gonna keep them forever. They're just great boards, and I like the designer, and they're everything I want out of a collector piece in the hobby, and I don't feel like I need anything more, at least in the 60 and 65% space. So I'm good. Why care about the aftermarket value of your keyboard unless you're some weird clout chasing freak? At this point in the hobby, I'm happy with what I have. I'm confident in my decisions on what to buy. I don't need people to be jealous of what I have to give me value as a person. Should you enter the group buy for this keyboard? I'm typically against group buys, but Elaine has always delivered on her projects, and her attention to detail, communication, and her track record have stood the test of time. So I'd happily join a GB project with Singa. I'm extremely satisfied with this keyboard. I'm a walking hypocrite since I've said I've hated MX Blacks, but you can't argue with that sound. Thank you, Elaine, for letting me buy this keyboard from Extras, and thank you for making some good freaking keyboards. Singa Simps stand up. Thanks for watching. Peace out.